behind it.
Yeah, great. Okay, yeah. So the best metaphor to use in this instance is thinking about Plato's Allegory of the Cave.
Yeah.
Okay. So in Plato's Allegory of the Cave, everyone's, well, like most people, are prisoners and they're chained to the ground, and their necks are shackled, so they can't move around. Okay, and the only thing they can stare at is a wall, right? And the rulers of this world, what they do is they have this fire behind everyone, and this fire, they have these puppets, and these puppets then project onto the wall. All right, and that's a perfect metaphor to understand the world we live in, where reality is a manifestation of our perceptions. Okay, consciousness is what gives rise to reality. If you want to create reality, then you have to be able to control and direct the consciousness of the majority of people. Okay, and that's what the elite do. Ever since the beginning of time, right? So before, these people were called priests, right? What's the job of priests? Priests were to create a narrative about the world that controlled and directed people's consciousness, so that this reality could be manifested with the priest at the very center. And this is no different from the world we live in today. Why do we have schools? Why do we have media? Why do we have the internet? And the point is to conjure the consciousness of everyone in order to manifest a reality that benefits the elite. And what's the purpose of this reality? Ultimately, the purpose of this reality is to extract energy from people, because that's the real wealth in the universe, right? If the entire universe is consciousness, then the real wealth is the capacity to direct and extract this consciousness and direct in a way that benefits you. Okay, and so another way of saying this is attention. Like, if you can direct people's attention, then you have all the power in the world. Okay, and there are different mechanisms that you can use to direct attention. So the most easy, the most universal way is money, right? Because money has a way of focusing your attention on trying to obtain as much of it as possible. And then to support this idea, where money is the center of the universe, is the entire media ecosystem, where when you read the news, like, read it very carefully, right? It's always like GDP. Okay, what matters is GDP, how much money was made. It's not about happiness. It's not about well-being. It's not about spirituality. It's about GDP. Okay, it's about human life. Okay, so human life is an economic commodity. So it's not about the quality of life you live. It's not about how creative or imaginative you are. It's about, like, like, your life is a set economic unit. If you die, then that's a downgrade of GDP. Okay, so the entire world is to focus your attention on money and make you believe that money is God, that money is the end all and be all, and that's the world we live in today. And but what's key to understand is that, actually, you know what, money can go away. You don't really need money. But what you still need is to be able to direct and control people's attention, and that's why there are these fail safes in the system. Okay, and so the classic example is artificial intelligence, right? Why are they spending so much money on developing artificial intelligence? Is it really so that you can generate porn videos online so you can watch it? Is it really so that you have an AI girlfriend? No, the point is that once money is gone, you need a new god to replace money, and that has to be artificial intelligence, a mechanism or device that can control your entire perception. Okay, so imagine, like, you're online and this computer's talking to you. And I met people, I have friends who tell me, like, this AI is real. And, like, I'm trying to explain to them, no, it's not real. It's a goddamn hallucination. Okay, all AI is just statistical modeling. That's all it is. You're being fooled, and they don't get it. It's impossible to explain it. No, it's real. I talk to him. I talk to the AI, and the AI understands me. Okay, so I mean, that's the failsafe. Once the money system is gone, then you create a world in which, everyone lives in his own individual matrix. Okay, it's like literally that. And, like, you spend all your time online talking to your AI girlfriend and talking to God, who will tell you how to live a better life. And what they don't understand is that behind this AI, it's like the Wizard of Oz. It's just like this old guy, like, talking to you. Okay, and it could be like literally, literally, it could be like millions of Indians in a warehouse somewhere talking to you, and you think it's God. You think you're literally talking to, like, Natalie Portman or someone, or like Audrey Hepburn, who's been brought back from the dead. All right, so yeah, I mean, like, the problem with consciousness is that, it's beautiful, it leads to massive creativity. The problem with consciousness is, like, we cannot differentiate reality from fantasy, right? We just can't do it. So once this AI system is in place, then we all become prisoners in Plato's cave.
Also, there's several key elements to if you add into this understanding, which will show people that the way technology has developed all throughout the scientific rational age probably is not accidental as well. In the sense of like the reason why smartphones have developed in the way they have is a deliberate understanding of the way to capture people's attention, to keep them distracted, to keep them divided, and to keep them reactive emotionally. Just as most people don't realize that the internet and Google were products of the military and the CIA deliberately to be able to collect data and to sort it and to be able to filter through it and use it for, whatever purposes they wanted to. And in a similar sense...
Sorry, I hate to interrupt, but I would go deeper and say that science itself was a creation of the Freemasons.
That's
right?
What I was about to say, yes.
Yeah, Isaac Newton, they're all Freemasons, right?
Well, because what science does is it's one of its like biggest coups was that it wiped away previous history and put on top of it a new interpretation of our place in the world that was purposeless and seemingly random. Yep. So it hid a lot of the deliberate machinations that were happening.
Exactly. So evolution, right? The theory of evolution. It's a really problematic theory, but like think about how in like 20 years time it was able to conquer all of the world, right? So like in 20 years time, all schools were teaching the theory of evolution, and like you're not allowed to create like it's the most dominant theory in the world. And if like you ever question evolution, so it's like, did we really evolve from apes? People would just think you're insane. People would just think that you're this, this retard. Okay, it's so embedded in our everyday reality, like this theory of evolution. Yeah.
Well, also, it means that people, I think we lost as a population an understanding of what it actually means to advance your consciousness, whether that's spiritually or in a secular sense, because I have, beginner experience in some of the Eastern religious traditions, and it is very clear that it is possible for people to advance their consciousness into the interpersonal and interplanetary cosmic realms. But if that is not done in a healthy way, it can also end up with people who are actually very advanced in the power of their minds, but who have dark psychological, pathological shadows, which are then incorporated into the way they see the world. And I have a sense that this is what has been happening with the secret societies for a long period of time, in that they have attained certain powers over the mind, and they have thought about using them because also there is I think I've taken this from your lectures as well. If you understand that the nature of what we think to be reality is not true, and that there is a sort of a nomina or a monad, and that what happens in this realm is actually not as important as what happens in the monad, then that gives you if you're immorally inclined, that gives you the license to behave however you want in this world. And
exactly. So, yeah, you're exactly right. And this goes back to the Allegory of the Cave, right? Where one person escapes and he goes into the monad, the nomana, and he sees reality for what it is, just pure consciousness, pure light. And at this point, he has three options, right? The first option is to just stay where he is. But he doesn't do that because he feels pity for the people below him. So he goes down. Second option is to go down and tell the truth to people. And then people just laugh at him, right? And this leads to a third option, which is like, well, why not just use this against people? If you know the truth, then you are the one-eyed man in the kingdom of the blind, right? You can do whatever you want. And that's what the people in power understand. Like, if I understand that mind is everything, consciousness is everything, then I'm able to use this against people because they don't understand this. People understand, people think that money is everything. But like, what matters is who prints the money, who creates the money, who controls the money, right? That's what matters. It doesn't matter how much money you have. Like, you have $1 trillion of like fake money. Good for you, right?
Yeah. So that takes me on to a question that I'd like to direct more to the Western audience. We've spoken a bit about the deeper currents of thought and belief systems within society that linger on for millennia or hundreds of years at the least. But we, in the scientific rational age, kind of dismiss them as being outdated or as if we have progressed beyond them. And there was one particularly impactful period in the Protestant Reformation, which you've spoken about, where this question of how do I know if I'm being a true believer to God came up, and there was three answers that were created. There was the Calvinist work ethic, the breaking of taboos, and I think the third one was the inner assurance and self introspection. You've spoken about the first two in particular and how they sort of linger. We see them showing up in society these days, really shaping the way that we, hail rich people because they seem to have gained the grace of God. And you've spoken also about the breaking of taboos as being more involved in some of the secret societies activities as their way of showing their fealty to nobody but God. What I don't see showing up in our society is the third answer so much, the inner assurance through self scrutiny. Do you have any understanding of why that worked out the way it did? That two of the answers to that question were very powerful and successful, and the third answer did not gain much traction?
Yeah, right. Well, it's because the idea of individuality, right? The idea of individual creativity is the greatest threat to the system, because your
Mm-hmm.
greatest act of rebellion is to deny the reality before you and establish your own reality. If everyone did that, the system would collapse, right? So an act of rebellion is not to overturn the regime, because because if that ever happened, you would just be the new regime doing whatever they did before, right? That's why we feel there's continuity in the system, even though we know for a fact that these dynasties, these individuals have changed over time. So the idea, like I've heard conspiracy theorists say that, this goes back to the 13 families of Rome. This goes back to Venice. This goes back to the Knights Templars. This is all nonsense. This is not how humans behave. But the ideas pass on from generation to generation. The idea of how to construct a reality in which you are able to enslave the majority of people, that's stay with us. And according to game theory, like, even if this knowledge were not to be passed on, whoever's in charge would just build a system like that, because that is optimizing his interests. Okay, so it feels as though it's continuous, but it's not. So the only way out of this is for us as individuals, because we all have a connection to the higher consciousness, to the monad, is for us to embrace this consciousness and to reject what is before us. Okay, to reject money, to reject materialism, to reject status, and say that what matters to me is my own creativity. What matters to me is my impact on others around me, my generosity, my openness, my kindness. By acting with generosity, I change the world for the better. Okay, and that's a secret, because people talk about like a holographic universe, right? What is a
Mm-hmm.
holographic universe? All the universe is reflected in us, and so we have the capacity to change the universe for the better or for the worse for our own individual actions. And once we embrace our unique individuality, once we embrace our the power of our consciousness, and once we understand our own responsibility to the universe, then we have to participate in the world in a way that benefits everyone. And that is the greatest act of rebellion. And it's actually an act that requires the most courage. Because what you're talking really about is abandoning your family, abandoning your friends, abandoning the society that you grew up in. Okay, it's like basically jumping off a cliff and expecting to land, right? But like no, you've been taught that if you jump off a cliff, you're gonna die. But you know in your heart that when you jump off the cliff, you're just gonna fly. And like, if you said that to people, people would just think you're crazy.